can I help you? And he didn't get that all through the journey until he was at the Golden Gate Bridge to jump. Now you're asking, why would someone want to kill themselves, or why would the person want to take their own life? And it is only because they want to escape from lethal emotional pain. They want to escape from pain that is excruciating, pain that they cannot deal with anymore. They want to escape from shame. They want to escape from agony or torment, mental torment, or anything that's really suppressing and depressing them. They just want to take themselves away from that equation. So at the point where the person will come to and say that, listen, everyone else is better off without me. The family would go on without me. I'm a burden to someone. I'm a burden to the society. I'm a burden to everyone else. I'm no good. Nothing good is coming off from me. When the person starts thinking these things and they believe that the only escape out of this is to take their lives, that is when the person becomes suicidal. And the statistics actually show that one in every, bear with me 1 second. So it's like every 40 seconds, we lose someone to suicide. Every 40 seconds, we lose someone to suicide. Wow. There are any 20 people you meet, you're talking to 20 people. One person is contemplating suicide. One person is thinking about shutting it all down. One person is thinking about escaping from pain. Every 20 people that you come across. Now, unfortunately, the number of men as compared to women, it's 4 times higher in men than in women, because men are more likely to commit suicide because they won't speak up, because they will not talk, because they're supposed to be men. They're supposed to take it as a man. They're supposed to be very masculine, and your masculinity doesn't allow you to have feelings. It doesn't allow you to emote. You're just supposed to max it up and then silence the pain. So men find themselves in positions where they cannot speak out about their pain. They cannot speak up about the things that they are going through. They cannot speak up about anything that's going on with them. And then to them, the best response to that is to just take their own lives. And then they're just done. They just escape from it. It's no longer harming anyone. It's not harming them, and they're done with it.
So
that's just.
I'm sure that before a person even thinks of taking his own life, it should have been bottled to a certain level. It doesn't just happen once. Are there various forms of, are there stages as to which a person will say that I've gotten to this stage, it's at the brim, now I want to take my life?
Yes. So everyone has a baseline. You naturally are responses to triggers or to trauma or to pain is to either fight it or flee from it. So we have the fight or flight. So either we are going to face it and then deal with it, or we do not deal with it at all. And it's baseline for everyone. But when you go beyond your threshold, so if, for instance, let's take an example of a gentleman who's completed school in 2010 and has not gotten any form of employment. He is the first son in the family. He has responsibilities. His parents are pensioners, they're not working. So at this point, he has to start providing for the family. He has to make things work for the family. And he's unable to do this. So in 2010, now this is building up. Every year it's like, oh, okay, I'll do it again next year. I'll do it again. I'll try again next month. I'll try again next year. And then they keep, telling themselves that there's hope, there's light at the end of the tunnel. So they're going to keep going. But everything they do proves futile. It just doesn't go on well. It's like there's no hope anywhere at any point. Now, this has built up from 2010 all the way through to now. He's still unemployed. He's still not making money anywhere. He's having the hush-hush conversations from the family. People are saying things. His friends are thriving. They're doing things. They're achieving things. And it's like he's feeling the disconnect. He no longer can contribute to a social conversation because what do you bring to the table? You're not working. You're unemployed. Going on for you. And these things are building up. And it built up to the point where there's a complete disconnect. And then they feel like, here I am, here's where the society is. I don't fit in. I do not match. I'm not bringing anything to the table. I don't matter. There's nothing valuable coming from me. So the mind will start to distort his reality. He will start to see things that, well, I'm not worth it. There's nothing good coming out of me. What is the point in continuing to live? What is the point in staying here and being a burden and taking money from my parents or from my siblings? There's no way out of it. So it has built up to that point where the disconnect has completely happened and they are out of it. They are just not feeling connected in any way to their family first, even their friends. And people like this start to detach. They start going to church. They stop going to church if they are Christians. They stop attending public gatherings. They stop. They just find a way to avoid being in the midst of people so that they are not laughed at or they are not spoken about. And now we all know how the online community goes. Without you wanting trouble, the pressure is there. People are buying cars and doing things that you would want to do at a certain age, and you haven't done any of that. And you're waking up every day and seeing that, and it's also adding up to your own pressures. So it gets to the point where the disconnect is very, very clear. And then they feel the pressure so much, it has mounted up. And then at that point, the mind tells them, listen, flee, go away, take yourself out of this. This is not worth it. What do you have to offer? Go.
From the part of the world where we come from, a lot of things are linked to spirituality, where someone may say that they see suicide committal more to be spiritual than physical, and all the things that you've spoken about. As an expert, do you think that spiritually you can link or connect those cases to our spiritual existence?
First off, I'm an expert. I'm a Christian as well. So yeah, I believe that there is some sort of link to some extent, not largely, but to some extent. Now, it could be that the person has some form of disconnect from their God. In my case, I'll say God, because if they have a disconnect, they are already disconnected from the source of light, if that makes sense. So they're disconnected first off, and then they start to disconnect from society, disconnect from family. So there can be a spiritual aspect, but I'm not entirely keen on blaming it on that.
All right, thank you. Now let me come to Lawyer Christian. I know that in our legal system, before something can even be deemed criminal, there are two things that needs to happen: the idea, which is the mens rea, and then the act itself. If I attempt to commit suicide and I don't succeed, why should I be punished? That's my first question to you, Christian. Hello, Christian, you're on mute.
Thank you for the question. It is important for us to note that, just as you said, in criminal jurisprudence, that equation goes for mens rea and actus reus. Now, mens rea deals with the intention. The actus reus deals with the act, the circumstantial issues, the surrounding events, and all of that. Now, when the two coincide, then we say there's a criminal offense. In the situation of attempted suicide, we have what we call in law inchoate offenses. Now, inchoate offenses are or include conspiracy, abetment, attempt. Now, our particular interest is with attempt, so that attempt involves where one takes certain steps to commit an offense, but the person is unable to satisfy or to complete that particular offense. So the mere preparation towards it is what is enough. And for issues of attempted suicide, intention is what is required for the offense to suffice. So that intention for attempted suicide is clearly spelled out under Section 18 of Act 29. So when one attempts suicide under Section 57(2), coinciding with Section 18, the person has committed the offense of attempted suicide. And if we travel far to Act 30, under Section 2964, it says that where you become guilty or you attempt suicide, you are guilty of the offense of misdemeanor. Misdemeanor basically means that you be construed to a fine or for incarceration or term of imprisonment of not more than 3 years. So maximum 3 years. So
that is why my challenge is, because see, before a person even decides to commit suicide, it means that emotionally, physically, the person is going through certain traumatical abuse. So if that person, to me, attempts something and it fails, I think the person needs more correction than punishment. Should that not be the case?
Yes, I mean, your assertion is right. Currently in Ghana, statistics show that 13% of the population are suffering from mental health issues in various degrees. Now, 3% of the population is suffering from chronic or serious mental health issues. 13%, and the remaining 10% are suffering from mild to moderate mental health issues. That tells you that anybody or most people are under the spell. And it is not by construction of what is on one's face to know that this person is suffering from the disease of the mind. As Macbeth said, that there's no act in the mind's construction to find in the face. In the same way, when somebody is suffering from an internal disease, as Lord Diplock, the popular jurist in English law, said, it is an internal disease to the person. It doesn't manifest as though it is a physical disease in the likes of the normal diseases we know, like malaria, chickenpox, or any other. That will show symptoms and all of that. But the symptoms that the person will show when an internal disease is manifesting are the final outcome of what is attempted suicide. Now, we have various experts who have written on suicide. And the common definition that pervades through all of these people is that attempt to commit suicide or suicide is caused by a stimuli of despair or pain. Now, these two things is very linked up to various mental impairments, such as schizophrenia, bipolar, anxiety, depression, and many other mental health problems, which number up to 250 known mental diseases around the world. Now, aside that, we have other triggering factors which come under what we call suicide ideations. Now, we just like the psychologist said, we all have our thresholds. So other stimuli that comes in is unable to handle pain. So somebody is suffering from a cancer, probably a terminal illness like cancer. That person is unable to handle the pain. You also have experts and in my writ that I filed at the Supreme Court, I've copiously also put out primary sources that suggest that the medications that people also take as a result of various treatments, like antidepressants, anticonvulsants, all those things causes suicide ideations, because those chemicals or the chemicals in those tablets affects the hormonal imbalance and alters the brain of the person. And so that all of these things, having established that there is a medical basis why persons attempt to commit suicide, it's not out of their whim, because nobody will voluntarily or think that I would want to end the happy life I am enjoying, or I would want to take myself out of the family that I am in. It is, or we have gotten to the junction or the juncture where we ought to realize that this is a mental health condition. Alas, the World Health Organization has concluded that attempted suicide or persons who attempt suicide are suffering from mental health condition, and it is a mental health priority. We have maintained this on our statute books because attempt to commit suicide traces to our colonial masters, and that is how come we find it in our 1960s Act 29. And our colonial masters traces it out to the medieval times, when, and I will take you into what we call legal theory and jurisprudence. Now, in it, we have one legal theorist called John Austin. And in his theory, he says that the law as we have it and the government of realm stems from the supreme, which is God. And from the supreme, we have the governed. From the governed represents the government or the state apparatus. Now, the state apparatus also controls the realm, which is statehood, and includes the subjects, myself and yourself, and all others listening. Now, the state has the defining authority from the supreme to control every life. That is how come we have rules and regulation. And that is how come we say that when you're looking at those legal theories, we have the positivists and the natural lawyers. Now, these people believe that the law comes from the command. And by that, you cannot take your life. So that the government is the one who is holding the state in on behalf of God. So that if you take your life, then you need to be punished in order to serve as a deterrent to others. Now, this has been the understanding of medieval time. And not too long, during the 1700s, Germany became the first country. It became amongst one of the first countries renounced attempt to commit suicide from its statute books. And many other Western countries followed. France followed through or after the French Revolution. And England and Ireland are among some of the last countries to take it out from their statute books. It wonders and baffles one mind why Ghana still has it on its statute books. Other African countries have taken it out, but some others also maintain it.
So
now,
Christian,
our rates to the
why are we still keeping it? Because ideally, like in my intro, I indicated that nobody in his right senses will go pick up a rope to tie his or her neck. And I think this law, even though we took it from our colonial masters, recently was consolidated. And I'm sure there have been other expertise advice in reviewing or amending the law. Why do we still keep it? Why?
So, yes, there has been a lot of stakeholder consultations as far as this particular matter is concerned. Now, we've had a lot of international community engagement with Attorney General and then the institution of parliament. Now, all of these things have failed. This particular, aside all these stakeholder engagements that I have mentioned with the Attorney General and then Parliament, this particular rate that I have filed at I have caused my lawyers to file at the Supreme Court, would interest you to know that the Attorney General is opposed to this particular position.
Okay.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
What is the basis of their opposition?
And the basic argument of the Attorney General is that this matter, anybody who attempts suicide needs to come to court to defend himself. And if you also read, the Attorney General concludes, interestingly, that persons who attempt suicide is not a matter of medical condition. But yet, the Attorney General failed woefully to explain or to submit with alternative medical opinion how this is not a mental condition. When we have copiously, in fact, we have shown tons of literature of medical, or we have given a lot of medical literature to establish that, and that became the premise of our submission before we moved into the legal remit, because the stakeholders and all those social science writers and psychologists, they have basically posted arguments which are seated in the social sciences. But what I looked at was how I can harness all of those things and couch them into a legal argument. Now, aside laying the foundation using all these social researches that has been done by very wonderful people in the medical field, I canvassed them around Article 17, Article 29.4, Article 15, and also looked at the conflict between the Mental Health Act and then Section 57.2 of Act 29.
Well, I will plead that you're making it more legal. Majority, about 80% of our listeners are non-lawyers.
So these areas,
yes,
these areas became the areas of relief that I canvassed. Now, let us go to Article 29.4. This provision under the 1992 Constitution deals with the fact that the provision under the 1992 Constitution deals with the fact that disabled persons who hitherto the law or the Constitution is to protect them against exploitation, is to protect them against regulations and any other rules that will seek to discriminate against them or to denigrate or dehumanize them. Now, we have a law like Section 57.2. And if you just oppose it to Article 29.4, the definition of disability or disabled persons is not provided under the Constitution. But in looking at the body of laws, we extend our mind to the definition under the Disability Act. And in the Disability Act, it defines disability to include mental impairment. So that, having concluded under this definition, it means that just opposing it to the constitutional provision, they cannot, or in construing it, the law enjoins that such persons are protected against regulations. And which regulations are we talking about? We are talking about Section 57.2. So that if Section 57.2 is against, or it is to perpetuate a form of criminalization against disabled persons, which hitherto the Constitution is meant to protect, then there's a conflict in the law. I don't know whether you get me.
Yes, I'm following.
Such that that particular constitutional provision is to protect against regulations and definition of regulation using, or when we come under the Interpretation Act, we have interpretation aids. Now, interpretation aids will help and extend the definition of regulations to mean rules, laws. And Section 57.2 is a legislation, although or albeit a regulation. So that whether regulation is against or does not serve the interest of persons with disability, albeit people suffering from internal or mental impairment, then there's a conflict. And to that extent, where there's a conflict, the latter must fall apart or must fall away. And that is why we are saying that Section 57.2 needs to be expunged. That's just one point. If you have a question, you can ask.
Okay. Let me move to Isaac. Isaac Moselena from South Africa. Thank you for joining us. Isaac is a commercial and family law attorney in South Africa. I know South Africans have decriminalized suicide attempts. So please help us understand, what different thing did you see, or how was the reasoning behind, or what was the reasoning behind the decriminalization of suicide in South Africa? So Isaac, we are all ears.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to this interesting space. Just a bit of a background of myself, just before I answer the question. I know Chris back then when I was still doing debating at university, and I've been to Ghana twice because of him, actually. And just hearing you guys speak brings a lot of nostalgia with me. Look, I have to come back. I'm not gonna lie, I love the place. It's a beautiful place, and I enjoyed it. So there's two reasons why in South Africa we don't consider things like suicide as a crime, and one of them have to do with the legislation. We've got a Section 78 of the Criminal Procedure Act, which provides that a person whose act or omission constituted an offense and who suffers at the time of a mental illness or defect, and which makes him incapable of appreciating the lawfulness of the act or acting in accordance with that appreciation, will not be criminally responsible for that act or commission. The other one is a Latin term called de minimis non curat lex. In other words, the court will not concern itself with minimum things. So things like suicide are things that the courts will not consider because it's so minimum, it's so small that it's not important to prosecute somebody even for attempting suicide. Instead, I mean, even in court, even in a normal criminal procedure proceedings, if somebody pleads insanity as a defense, immediately we stop the proceedings and send the person to a psychiatric evaluation to determine whether the person has capacity to stand for trial. So mental illness is held in high regard in South Africa, to a point where issues which surround things like suicide would trump any other criminal attachments towards it. So you can't say somebody is accused of attempting suicide and punish them instead of looking at what's actually the layers behind it, what causes them to decide to attempt suicide, and which at most cases is mental illness. And so rather focus on helping the person rather than punishing them, because in South Africa we view punishment in a very serious light, and especially when I mean serious, I mean like it could be rehabilitative, it could be retributive. And if already we're saying that we will rehabilitate convicted criminals, it makes no sense to rehabilitate a convicted attempted suicide person where you can remove them from environments that actually cause them a mental state that result them in depression and eventually suicide, to move them to an environment where you can assist them. So we don't even think about suicide. It's not a crime. And I think the last reason is community mores. So most of our laws in South Africa are based on community morals. If the community, and I'll make this family law example. In South Africa, you can't sue somebody else who terminates an engagement. You can't say, look, you proposed to me and then now you don't want to marry me, so I'm
so in
suing
Ghana,
you.
that's breach of promise to marry.
Yeah, we don't have breach of promise as
Nice
a
one. So it
delictual
means a lot
claim.
of people should come to South Africa then.
Yes, because communities, we've agreed that if my intention to marry you, remember that intention to marry comes with a gap where a lot of things can happen. And if during that gap, then the desire to marry is no longer there, you cannot force a person to continue a marriage by saying, if you don't marry me, then I'm going to sue you. Because the marriage will not be for community morals. It will be against community morals.
Oh.
And therefore, there are many crimes which were crimes and no longer crimes. Like adultery is not a crime, like bigamy is not a crime, because they are against community morals. So 3 things I spoke about: it's capacity, it's small things, and community morals. A lot of cases these days, especially in civil proceedings, which were you could sue somebody for, or even criminal unlawfulness. They're no longer unlawful because they're just not against community morals anymore. And so I'm concerned when Christians says that the Attorney General in Ghana is opposing his application. For me, is he representing the interest of the community, the society in Ghana, or this is some government conservative view? What does the community think about mental illness? And I think his application, if he hasn't filed it yet, I think what you need is to also cite as well medical practitioners who have to file their own report, even become amicus curiae. I don't know if you guys have processes like amicus curiae. We use a lot of Latin terms because we're heavily influenced by Roman Dutch law. Amicus curiae is a friend of the court. It's a separate person who makes an application to interdict and provide legal opinion for the court, to assist the court, to say, look, first of all, mental illness is a serious problem. All these statistics that you've mentioned, if they come from an independent person who's neither the applicant or the respondent, they assist the court to say, this is the position regarding suicide in terms of how everyday life goes. Yes, you guys live in the benches, you guys live in the chambers, you live in your offices, and you live in the firms. But this is the reality of life on the ground. And then there's also the doctors, there's also medical practitioners, there's also come in and communities as well, to say, but we view mental illness as a disease, an illness in which we need to invite people to assist these individuals as opposed to punishing them. And why punishment in terms of the penal code is actually detrimental or counterintuitive to helping a person. So if you establish that Section 57 of the penal code is actually counterintuitive, then it serves no purpose in addressing the challenges faced by the Ghanaian people. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Isaac. I think that I wholly agree with the South African concept about balancing the law as against the societal needs. I mean, law is supposed to serve the society and not the other way around. So now back to Christian.
Yes.
Is there a possibility, looking at the application you filed, that the Ghanaian courts or the Supreme Court will look into more of a progressive analysis into this rather than the legal submissions by the Attorney General?
Yes, I mean, just like I said, the rate that I filed, we copiously captured a lot of medical literature. Very, very copious. Very, very, very copious. Yeah. And our submission is more detailed than what the Attorney General just gave some few pages. Just some few pages. We gave almost a booklet. we gave almost a booklet, and the response of the Attorney General, with the greatest of respect, is very interesting. But I cannot say further than what I have just said. Now, aside giving the premise and citing a lot of expert medical opinion in the discipline, we then moved on to talk about the fact that where such disability operates, then it affects intention under section 18. So that if the sole purpose or the only element that is required to establish attempted suicide is intention, that's as provided under section 18, then this internal disease, once it's a disease of the mind, it vitiates, it impeaches intention. And where it impeaches the intention or vitiates the intention, then like we all know, there's no crime.
I get it. It makes a lot of sense. So
that's the first point. That's the first point. But Attorney General opposed it, but couldn't provide copious legal explanation to that. Now,
for that, we'll leave to the Supreme Court to decide. We are just hoping
yes.
I'll not
go into those areas. I mean, since the matter is sub judice, I'll not go into that because it is for them to decide. But for the purposes of education, because suicide, even though we have found a legal issue, it has a social connotation, and that's how come we are talking about it. So we are just trying to exhaust the socio-medical aspect of it, its effects, its impact, and the way forward, as far as the society of Ghana is concerned. So it is in no way or no means trying to usurp the judicial powers of the Supreme Court or to cast any negative light on the bench or any way. We can never, and I will never seek to do anything in that. Just for the record. Yeah.
Sure. Isaac, your hands is up. Do you want to add to the discussion now, Isaac Moselina? Or that was...
Look, I'm just curious actually as to, okay, what happens in a normal trial when somebody's accused of murder or accused of an assault in Ghana and this person pleads mental. What happens then in that situation? As I explained, in South Africa, if your defense is mental incapacity, we stop the proceedings, refer the person to psychiatric evaluation, Section 77 to Section 79 of the Criminal Procedure Act, to check if this accused is fit to stand trial, to also check did the accused have capacity when he committed this unlawful act. So I want to understand, if somebody pleads medical incapacity in Ghana, what happens then? That's just, how curious I am.
So Ghana, what happens is that if you are standing for trial and you plead any mental incapacity, just as is in South Africa, it will be stopped and you'll be referred for evaluation. Based upon the report, the court will know the direction to take. Now, Attorney General's argument is that any person who attempts suicide should go under the same defense. But our point is that in itself is a different pattern of crime. So that if one commits an offense and comes to plead of incapacity, that should be different from attempted suicide, because attempted suicide, it is inherently a mental health condition. Once you have it there as attempted suicide, it is inherently a mental health condition, as against somebody who commits robbery and comes to plead that it is a mental health, or somebody who commits murder and comes to say it is a mental health. That one, the burden is on you to prove. But what we are saying is that where you have it affixed as attempted suicide, that alone is inherently a mental health disease. And the WHO has recognized the fact that attempted suicide is a mental health priority, So all of these things, together with the other constitutional provisions that I mentioned, are the basis for why we filed this particular writ. And it begins the legal battle to have this renounced from our statute books.
We are very hopeful that this will lead to a very progressive decision. Steffi, I've seen your hands is up, but please, let's go and acknowledge our sponsors. Enos Travel, we'll be back after 5 minutes. And then, so Dennis, if you are here, please log on and then talk to us about Enos Travel. Just 5 minutes. Hello, Dennis. Hello.
Hi, lawyer. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
My network isn't good tonight, so anyway, I would like to thank Isaac and Chris. I can't mention the other name, and
Steffi.
for Steffi. Yes, I was talking about Chris's other name, and Miss Steffi for the insight.
Christian Lebrecht Mount Hesse.
Christian, are you
Don't worry.
Ghanaian?
I have German ancestry.
Okay.
From colonial ties. Don't mind us.
Okay. Well, you know, Miss Steffi mentioned if you see people progressing in life and all that, it mounts up to having the depression and stuff. And I would like to say, Chris, you have a very nice car.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyway, Enos Travels is happy to be sponsoring such a program, and always every other week we get insights on different topics. Now, Enos Travels in Ghana, we've actually organized a number of tours internationally. We've been to Europe, we've been to USA, we've been to Asia, and currently we are also organizing a tour from Ghana to Kenya and that to Dubai. And then hopefully, Isaac, we would come see you in South Africa very soon, as we are creating a South African itinerary as well. Currently, on the 17th of November to the 24th of November, Enos Travels have an event coming on, which we are taking a lot of people from Ghana through Kenya. And then in Kenya, we will be doing a tour in Nairobi. Then from Nairobi, we'll go on to Dubai. As part of the packages for Enos Travels, we have packages for students as well who wants to have their vacation in the United States. There's a program, a J1 program called Work and Travel. So if you're a student outside the United States and you want to have another experience, a cultural exchange program, Enos Travels have that program, and we'll be very happy to assist you. For all other students who want to do their postgraduate in the United Kingdom, in the United States, in Canada, or any other country in Europe or in Asia, Enos Travels has those services that can assist you and guide you to get all these courses, all these programs to do in Europe or outside the country. You can find Enos Travels on Instagram, eno.travel. On Twitter is Travels Eno. On Facebook is Enos Travels. And then in the chat, I'll put the contact, the website, the phone numbers you could reach Enos Travels on. And if anybody is interested in any other issue, any issue in traveling, Enos Travels, we take you to the world and beyond. Lawyer, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dennis. And
I have a question and a comment. Should I continue with that, or we'll come to that later on?
No, we'll come to the questions segment very soon. So I'll plead that you hold on to your questions.
But
All right. So, Steffi, now back to you. On the way forward, Steffi,
Hi.
how do we let people know that one is not good to take out your life, and if somebody is having such thoughts, what are the way forward for such person? Where does the person go? Who do they speak to? And what are the practical steps that myself or any other person can take so as to not to think too much to even think of taking his or her life?
Okay. Um, First off, I want to say that when he mentioned the Attorney General not wanting to go ahead with it, I laughed because I think we have sidelined mental health issues in Ghana. We have marginalized it. We've made it look like it's because it's not physical health. You can't go to Kolebu and say that, oh, my head is aching, or I have a cut on my arm, and you cannot physically see the pain the person is going through or the torture or torment. It looks like, oh, it's not that important, it's not that serious. And you find people making certain snide comments with when someone says, oh, I have depression, or I have anxiety, or I have bipolar. It's like they'll just make a comment to make it look like, what sort of thing is this? Keep quiet and let's talk about serious things. I mean, it's so sidelined to the point where people who have these challenges, mental health challenges, do not want to talk about it for fear of being stigmatized or being talked about wrongly. Now, this has happened over the years. There are not a lot of campaigns or awareness programs that are throwing more light on mental health issues and challenges that people face. So if the Attorney General sits in his chamber and says, it looks at everything and says there's not enough evidence that this is serious.
Steffi, because personally we are not privy to the Attorney General's defense or even the affidavit in opposition, I'll plead that we don't go so much into it. So for now, kindly give us the way forward. Exactly.
Yeah, that's fine. That's all right. So I wrote up like 3 things, well, 4, on how to support people who are contemplating suicide. So first of all, like I always say, you have to be kind. Nobody is wearing their depression on their shoulder. No one is wearing their traumatic experiences on their face. So I can be smiling at you, I can be happy, but deep down I'm masking up traumatic experiences. So give people reassurance. If someone comes to you and says, things are not going well for me, I'm not feeling right, do not brush it off. Be supportive. Listen to people. Do not listen and then put in your experience. So the person comes to you and says, I have this issue, and you go, oh, even me last week, I also had the same issue. No, the person has come to you with a problem. So just listen. As much as possible, be there for people. And if you can signpost people to therapy or professional help, that would be brilliant. If you know people who are offering therapeutic services and someone comes to you and you know you cannot give professional advice, don't say anything that would make the thing worse. Just signpost the person to the place where they can get professional help. And do not stigmatize people who have attempted suicide and you know about. If they tried it and they didn't succeed and they are still alive, your comment about, oh, go and kill yourself like you did the other time, it's a bit insensitive. So you'd have to be more sensitive to people. You yourself are carrying your burdens, which is understandable, but be sensitive, be supportive. Now, how do you raise awareness of these suicide prevention, or how do you tell people about it? Support campaigns like this. This is a brilliant discussion. I work for a company called Yoli, and we have this week have the suicide prevention campaign ongoing. So you see posts about it, you see comments and Facebook, Instagram, everywhere talking about why suicide is on the rise, how we can prevent it. So promote it as much as you can. Support such campaigns, share it, like it, comment, talk about it, tell people. If you are a leader in a church organization, let there be programs like this where people will come and talk about suicide prevention and raise awareness of it, so the mass public and everybody else starts to know how important it is, and they get to know more about suicide. And then lastly, hopefully none of us here are contemplating it, but if you are, or this goes out to someone who is, listen, you have to learn to live in the present. Yesterday is past, is gone. Tomorrow is not yet here. You're worrying about it for nothing, but live in the present. Live in the now. It's a gift. Live in the now. Say, if you can keep a gratitude journal, it would go a long way to help you. The Bible says,
what is a gratitude journal? What is a gratitude journal? I'll go so much into it and list. What's a gratitude?
Okay. So you see how you have a journal, like a diary where you write things in. So a gratitude journal is where you have a book or a diary or a journal where you write the things you are grateful for. So the very little things up to the biggest things. So I woke up this morning and I went on a walk. You can be grateful for that. I spoke to 10 people today, grateful for that. I learned a new hobby today, grateful for that. Somebody called and checked up on me, grateful for that. I went for an interview, I made it. That's like the big side, grateful for that. So it ranges from the very little things to the very big things. Nothing is out of order. Put everything in there. And anything that you think of that you are thankful for, the people in your life, your family, your friends, your loved ones, your colleagues, yourself, or things that you do for yourself that make you feel happy at that point. Anything you're thankful for, write it down. So if you take maybe for the month of January and you've written one a day, when you come out of it, you have 31 things to be. So on the day that you're feeling very low, when you go back to your journal and you read through it, you're going to see all the things that made you happy, all the things that you were thankful for a week ago, a day ago, a minute ago, probably, and it will bring back some reassurance. Just remind yourself of the good things that have happened. And also, I always say to pause. When you're having a traumatic experience, when you're feeling depressed, when you're anxious, when things are not going right, pause, take 5, and then think through it. It is a bad day, not a bad life. It is just that day, that moment somebody said something so hurtful. It is just within that moment. Once it passes, it's done. So before your mind blows it out of proportion, take 5, breathe, and then reflect on it. What happened? The person spoke to me in a way I didn't like, said something about me not working. Yes, I'm not working, but I can find work tomorrow. And then rearrange your thoughts, put it back into perspective, and then take it from there. And just have hope. The theme actually for this year's Suicide Prevention Month is change through hope. So we have to put people on, let them know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. It's not as grim as it looks like. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. And this one is particularly for the guys, the men. Please speak up, talk, say something to someone. Listen, your masculinity is not how macho you are by not speaking or by not telling someone how you're feeling. Speak up. If it hurts, if you are in pain, if you are not feeling right, find someone you trust, someone who looks out for you, and speak up. Tell someone something. Say it. Let someone hear you out. Don't keep it bottled up to the point where you can no longer deal with it. Always, always open up and speak up. And lastly, I am just going to remind everyone that therapy is not a bad thing. Therapy is not negative. It might be a bit expensive in Ghana, I think, but it is not a bad thing. It is support for you. It is a way for you to come back to yourself. It is not there are no negative connotations to it. Once you go into therapy, it's just you going to tell someone your issues and then they help you out with it. That's it. And that's basically it. Help is always there, but you have to say something. Please say something, and someone would listen. Someone is there. Yeah.
Wow,
So that's it.
It reminds me of the Methodist hymn which says that count your many blessings, name them one by one, and it'll surprise you to see what the Lord has done. Thank you very much, Steffi. Thank you very much, Steffi. And I think we've passed our 1 hour time, but we allow for 5 questions from our audience. Benjamin Siedu, I've seen your hands have been up since we started. Benjamin, please go ahead with any question you have.
Thank you very much, my brother, and thank you to your experts. They've been wonderful. Christian is my colleague. I'm also a lawyer and author of Reading the Law. Yes, so my little contribution is that currently there is a bill before Parliament, a private members bill, to deal or decriminalize attempted suicide. So I'm pleased to tell my colleague, Christian, that as he's pursuing the Supreme Court issue, his attention should also go to Parliament and make that input. That attempted suicide can come in 2 forms. People suffering from mental ailment or out of pain.
Hello, Benjamin. Hello, Benjamin.
I think we're losing him there, but I don't know if it's me or...
Yeah, I can't hear him from here. So
of this one.
I think we can move to the next person, Theophilus. Please ask your question, Theophilus.
All right. Good evening. I'm Theophilus. I'm a student, and I have this platform, which is a mental health support platform. It's anonymous. We call it iCare. My question is for someone like me who is not into the mental health space, or is not a professional, but it's providing a platform like this. It can get a bit confusing as to how exactly to provide the help, even though I already provide certified counselors that attend to these people. Now, I just want to know if there are any ways that maybe I do not know of that this digital, we the people who provide the digital help like this can be able to reach people all across. Maybe there are things that we do not know about, or there are some ways we are doing things that there's anyone here who can be able
I think
to help me out.
Steffi can take that. Steffi, please take that and then assist.
Hi, Theophilus. Thank you for the question. I'm not too sure about this different organizations and helplines that we who have that support system that you have created or you are doing. They give those numbers as well to the people who have those issues after they've spoken to them. So they give them those numbers that is constantly available, and then they can just call. So I'm not too sure how it looks like in Ghana, but because if I those people, they may not be able to access it from there to the UK. I'm thinking if there is the people that you speak, if there's a, okay, so I've been told that there's a help now as well. One of my just mentioned that to me. So what I can get those numbers for you and then provide it for you, Theophilus, so you can provide it to the people who come to you with that
Okay.
help.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So there's an active helpline, I'm told. So I'll get the number and then I'll send that through. If you could put an email address on the chat for me so I can make a note of that.
All right, I will do that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
All right, Nana. Okay, Kobe, Nana, your hand is up. Nana, please unmute yourself and then ask your question.
Okay, thank you very much. Please, can you hear me?
Yes,
I
go
can
ahead.
hear you, Nana.
Okay.
So I think.
Great. Thank you very much. In fact, having listened to it all,
Nana, you're on mute. Please unmute yourself and then so we can hear you. All right.
is it better now?
Yes, go ahead.
Great. Great. So what I was saying was that I think probably we may need to hasten slowly in the decriminalization of attempted suicides. I think when the issue was on, I think the minority leader, Haruna, spoke up and he thought we should allow the law to stay as it is. Somehow, I sided with him. Somehow. I am a medical officer myself, and I'm going to raise some medical aspects to the discussion, why I'm coming from this angle. I think patient autonomy cannot be lost on us. A patient's consent, especially when it comes to psychiatric treatments, consent is needed. Before I proceed, one first question I want to ask is it our assumption that throughout the entire period of the ideation, the suicidal ideation, probably a bit of depression, up to the stage where a person attempts to commit a suicide, is it our assumption that throughout those periods, the person didn't have the mens rea? Because it is said that a defect of the mind has its points and times when it is actually not so. There are intervals in between where the person has a full mens rea, is fully active, does not have the defect of the mind, and anything he's considering, he's doing so in full capacity. I doubt if we may want to bundle it all together that the entire period, through it all, the person have no mens rea capacity at all to form the mens rea. I'll get back to this point shortly. Now, the angle I'm getting to is, throughout the various submissions, what we all keep hearing is there's a need for counseling of those people, not to condemn them to themselves, not to take them through the rigors of our prison system, which is very poor in any way. We all know that. But as we all say, there's need for rehab, there's need for counseling. If the person is not within the grips of the state, then can the person I'm asking here choose not to consent for such rehab and such treatments? If it is our assumption that there's no law which places attempted suicide into the hands of the state, so that probably we could, a bit of coercive force of the state, some compulsion, we can make the rehab compulsory. So somehow my understanding was we shouldn't take it completely out of the statute book that it's not a crime at all, or it's not an offense at all. Let me use the word offense. It could be an offense, but then the state should straight away go into the supportive system, not a punitive system, because there are different kinds of offenses. And if we could agree that people who commit these offenses rather need support and rehab, then we could rather activate that support system rather, though they are still within the confines of the states, though the states, I hope you get what I mean. But when we say that there's nothing wrong, it's not an offense, attempted suicide should just be taken off the state, then it means that if the person decides not to consent to the rehab, it means anybody can attempt suicide and walk away. Nobody can hold them to account. Nobody can call them for even the counseling, because counseling is not compulsory. So that's the aspect I want to raise for us all to consider, whether there can be some middle ground, not to criminalize and punish and worsen their condition, but also not to let them have that full freedom and choice to decide whether they can even go through the program or not. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nana. Kobe Armstrong, please unmute yourself and then make your contribution. Kobe.
Yeah, hello. Good evening, everyone. My lawyer. I don't know if I can speak now.
Yes, go ahead, Kobe.
Okay, so my name is Kobe Ofori Armstrong. I am a pastor and I'm also a farmer. And I'm just so happy because for this discussion tonight, because from where I'm coming from, we look at things more of the spiritual side. But from the education that I've gotten today, some of the people that we have in our churches that are battling so much in terms of the mind could just be healed just by a simple therapy or having somebody to talk to. So I thank the experts for the education. There are more, but I will leave it. But I have a question. So for my layman's understanding, I had a colleague which the father all of a sudden willed every property that they had to the second wife. And from where we were standing from, some of the things that the man began to do, we suspected that he was not mentally stable to be able to make such decisions. And it has been on for years. This, my friend, is going through a lot, but from the upbringing that they had, they shouldn't go through it. The man has stroke now and literally cannot speak. I don't know if there is a way in the law that it is the law that will determine that somebody is mentally incapable or have mental issues, or it is the attorney representing the client that will make it to the court, because they have they have attorneys representing them in court. But I don't know what is going on. I spoke to this guy just about a week or two ago, and they are still in court. The other woman has all the property, and the man has been left out. So I just need a bit of education here. What should we do? If I'm even making sense, but this is a practical one. So if any of the expert can educate us, me on this one.
Unless you are telling us that this is contributing to probably a mental health of any of them, I see this to be more of a commercial issue than suicidal issue. I don't know whether my other colleagues see it as such. So, Kobe, we can pick this conversation after. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we
okay.
can pick the conversation
even
after.
the commercial.
All right, I'm listening.
The commercial issue and the issue. I'm a farmer, so if you don't come down, I'll go to a commercial bank to pursue this issue.
No, so what I mean is that unless probably the will and then its circumstantial or its circumstances is leading to maybe trauma for one of the people who is attempting to commit suicide.
Okay.
If not, then this is more of a, I don't know how to put it, but I see this to be more of any other issues aside the suicide we are discussing today.
Suicide.
Sure.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Okay.
Hold on, Kobe. I'm not too clear on what the issue is, but what I think or I would suggest is the family of this man, and now that he's not speaking, it will be quite difficult to run a mental evaluation on him, but it's only a psychiatrist or a psychologist who would be able to run this evaluation and say for a fact that he's actually going through some mental distortion. That is why he made those decisions earlier. But you need a professional person to do that. But in the state that he is now, it might be a bit difficult to do it because the mental evaluation demands that the person also speaks and responds, and then they can go through that. So it may be a tad bit difficult, but it can be done if they really need to know. So they might have to speak to a psychiatrist or a psychologist, a professional. That's the only thing I can advise.
Okay. Because there are many a time this man will be shouting, I want to die, I will die, there is death coming. So they have to literally move him from the house, and went and rented a small apartment. But this man is a big man. Lawyer, we will talk. This man is a big man. And when I run they are calling me as a pastor, as a spiritual person, that, oh, pray about it and let's see, what is the Lord saying? And I said, I don't even know what to do. I don't even know what to do. So for the education I'm having today, then I can fit some of the things that the man has been saying as suicidal. But also I'm looking for a way to see if there should be any legal basis, whether a way to stop the woman from occupying. I don't know. All right. Okay. But anyway, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the education.
All right, Kobe, I'll call you after this so we find the way forward on that. We'll pick our last person, Dennis Dame. Dennis, please unmute yourself and ask the last question so we can close the chapter on today's topic.
Okay, the name is Denise, and I would like to say thanks first and foremost to the speakers and then the organizers of this program. And I would like to add that I have been at this stage myself. I've attempted suicide before, and I would say glory be to God. I've been able to come a long way. So my question is to Isaac. Yes, for South Africa, what happens to those who attempt to commit suicide? Who pays for counseling and all those little things? What happens? I don't think I was here before, but what happens to those people who attempt suicide? Who pays for their counseling and everything? And then what about people with cases where, okay, their girlfriend broke up with them, they want to kill themselves, their parents said something to them, they want to end their life and everything? What happens to those type of people? What happens to those type of cases in South Africa?
Yeah, so I think this is a very good question. So in South Africa, I didn't even know that today it was World Suicide Day, because on probably every week, we discuss suicide as a thing that needs to be dealt with every single day. And there are a lot of hotlines out there that assist. And these hotlines are available on a daily basis everywhere, even on Twitter, even on Facebook. But even if you go to a government hospital, because healthcare is free in South Africa. So if you go to a government hospital, you'll be able to access psychologists, you'll be able to access counselors as well. If you go to a pastor at a church and you inform them about your situation, they will be able to have you contact a health professional who has the capacity to assist you. So that's what happens. There's vigorous campaigning that is happening, which is something I see it's quite lacking in Ghana. So if there's a lot of campaigning that is happening in a country, yes, of course, you're not going to be able to deal with everyone. There are some people that still think that they can't access a psychologist at a government hospital. I don't know why they think that, but there are people that still think that those services are exclusive to people with medical aids or people who can afford to pay. But what happens in South Africa is that there's vigorous campaigning. I mean, like I'm saying, I didn't even know today it was World Suicide Day. I only saw it on Chris when he posted about it sometime last week, and also on a friend in Nigeria who's a psychologist, she's also hosting a Zoom meeting, I think today as well, or she did it in the morning sometime. But we every day advocate for people to see health professionals on suicide, on depression, because we've got a depression vigorous awareness in South Africa. You will find it everywhere. We talk about depression and stress like it's a soapy, because we want a lot of people to understand that they're not alone, that they could get help. So there's a lot of hotlines, free hotlines that people can call to get help. And that's essentially what happens. And that's why it will be quite strange for somebody to be arrested for suicide when everybody in the community in South Africa has acknowledged that we've got a serious depression issue. And and if a person takes their lives, it's not that they're happy to do it. And it's not like when they're doing it, they're thinking straight. We are aware that there are a lot of problems. Capitalism, for example, causes a lot of problems. I mean, I hear my sister Steffi is talking about lack of jobs and unable to afford the lifestyle. There's the same lifestyles as your friend. And probably in a country like South Africa that is highly industrialized, it's even worse, So there's a lot of people who are depressed. There are a lot of people who are having to leave places like Joburg to go back to their villages, who leave other urban areas and cities in like Polokwane and have to go back to their villages, and they could not afford those. And a lot of, like you said, girlfriends and boyfriends contributes to those things as well. But in the same line and equally, there are a lot of awareness campaigns to assist people who are found themselves in those particular situations. And government hospitals, even a clinic, even a local clinic around where you are, there's like a clinic in every 15 kilometers, especially in the what we call townships. These are the urban areas, but they're more closer to the villages. And you'll find every 15 kilometers, there's like a local clinic. And if you visit the clinic, there's an in-house counselor in there. And if the situation is severe, then they make a referral letter to go to the hospital. And the hospitals are not that far as well. So that's how much equally they would deal with the high number of depression issues in the country. Thank you.
All right, Isaac, thank you very much. I'll take two more, Jerry John and then Kay. So Jerry, please start. Jerry John, I saw your hands.
That's all. My hand has been on since we started the program.
Yes. So you have your the floor now.
Anyways, thank you. So I would want to take this from
Hello, Kay, we can't hear you.
I would want to ask that does it
Hello, Jerry.
We would also have to amend Article 13 of the Constitution, especially the portion that talks about no one takes their life intentionally. And the next thing I would also want to look at it is that the same laws from the background that Council gave us, that it emanated from the naturalist point of view, where our lives is in the hands of the Supreme Being, and we are not in any way entitled to take our own life. But the same law per Article 3 gives the state the right to in an event where the person tries or attempts to overthrow our constitution. And the same when you look at murder, an attempted murder, the law also gives room for people's lives to be taken. And funny enough, the same procedures and what people use to end their lives had been endorsed by Section 304, subsection 3 of Act 30, which is by hanging, by lethal injunction, electrocution, and then by gas chamber. And so the law has also given has mentioned the processes under which the state can even take your life from you. And these are the same processes that people also use to take their own lives. I mean, when you look at the most of the suicide that we have been encountering in this country. And so, is this being counter intuitive when the law has prescribed ways of killing someone, and the law, in the same vein, also decriminalizes someone who would want to also end their life? And finally, Council, just 30 seconds. I think that going to the other side of the whole argument, I think that I have a problem with we trying to sum up suicide with respect to mental deficiency, because when Decrime was making his book on suicide, when he says that there's egoistic, there's altruistic, there's anomic, and then the fatalistic, you can even realize that once a soldier is captured, that soldier is also likely to end his life because of the fact that they might press him to get some information from his people. And so I think that not all attempted suicides are grounded on mental deficiency, and so we would have to look at it holistically, trying either than we trying to sum up everything together. So that's my way of questioning and contribution to the program.
Well, thank you very much. We'll take the last one from Kay, and after that, Christian will answer your question. So, Kay, Kovuzu.
Host, sorry, I just wanted, host, sorry, I apologize. I just wanted to understand from the previous speaker, if he says that we should not, and I think I heard this away as well from the other guy that asked, who's a pastor, the question, the same question. If they're saying that we should not compound reasons for committing suicide as the ones that emanate from mental illness, what could be the reason why somebody would want to take their own life?
Okay, so I gave a typical example with respect to the altruistic kind of suicide, where if someone is so integrated within a group of people, and if the person is left with the option of ending the life rather than giving out those groups. A typical example is when soldiers go to war and a soldier is captured. And if that soldier has found himself with the enemy, and they are likely to subject him to torture, for him to give out some information that may aid in trying to overcome or empower the other group, that soldier is likely to take his life. That's the altruistic kind of suicide. And I don't think this has something really to do with mental deficiency, if you ask me.
So I think we'll extend this conversation in the coming weeks. So Kofi, let's hear your final submission so we can draw the curtain on this.
Thank you very much. Interesting submissions over here. I think the first thing I will want to say
to answer to him about the soldier.
Isaac, please Christian, let Kofi finish, and after that, we'll give the final submission.
Sorry. No, let him answer the question about the soldier, and then I'll make the.
No, Kofi, go ahead.
Okay, all right. Okay, so the first comment I want to make is that the psychology or the sociology of suicide itself is something that we need to pay an attention to, or the evolution of suicide. Generally speaking, suicide or the attempt of suicide is recognized as a mental disability, right? So irrespective of what is causing the situation, whether it's external stresses or even whether to use that Jerry just used, the case of a soldier placed in a situation, right? The soldier is placed in a situation, the psychology of it is that the soldier is placed in a situation whereby they would have to make it the circumstances they won't make. So there is that external stresses on him, which literally incapacitate his ability to make the normal decision make in a normal course of things. If there were no extracts that give up your people, not under any pain of death or a form of punishment. No, right? So you have to understand that the presence of external stresses definitely for anybody affects or incapacitates you to some your mental thinking. Right, that's the first thing we should note. The other thing the other comment I also want us to have in mind is that one of the huge reasons we give for having laws criminalizing suicide in our books, right, is the idea of general deterrence. And my question, and I did a quick search on the internet to see jurisdictions who have criminalized suicide, like Nigeria, India, who have criminalized suicide. With the criminalization of suicide, is there a decrease in suicide rate? No. Actually, on the contrary, suicide rates are going up. So the argument of deterrence for for criminalizing suicide doesn't work. And I can definitely say that based on anecdotal information, in Ghana, that's also the case. The presence or the criminalization of suicide does not, or there is no evidence that it performs a general deterrent role in our society. For somebody who is contemplating suicide, the last thing on their mind is whether the act they are about to engage in is criminal or not. Yeah. That is the last thing on their mind. So I think that's one thing we should have at the back of your mind. And as Onesimus rightly said, laws are made for society. If this law is not working for our society, right? If this law is not working for our society, then there's a need for us to change it. So even on that note alone, on these two notes alone, the fact that it is a mental disability and there's evidence that criminalizing a mental disability or something which is the product of a mental disability has not worked and will never, and from what the research is showing, will never seem to work, I think is a step in the wrong direction. And definitely I agree that should be changed from our law books. It shouldn't be criminalized. Now, for the doctor who said that he thinks that it should still be maintained as a crime on our statute books, but then the person should still be offered that mental support that they need. I beg to differ a little bit on that point, and then I'll conclude. I beg to differ a little bit on that point. If you want to provide support to someone, I think that starting from the perspective that what they've done is criminal, right, and having terms of imprisonment or fines imposed upon them. Now imagine this, you have somebody who has found themselves in a situation where they are unable to afford food for daily living, and they've gone hungry for several days. They live in abject poverty, right? And you want to sue them or prosecute them and then impose a fine on them. That in itself will compound the situation, right? So I think that criminalizing, making an argument that they should be, but still provide that support there is actually counterintuitive. It doesn't serve the purpose for the argument you're trying to make or the solution you're trying to proffer. In my respectful opinion, the best way to go about it is the decriminalization of it, but then putting social supports in place, right? Putting social supports in place that if somebody attempts to take their own life, definitely the first point you go is to reach out to resources in the society that will be able to help the person with counseling, right? Now, if somebody needs to be held under state orders because of mental capacity and because of the fact that we see that they are a threat or a harm to themselves, there is definitely processes in the legislation which allows for that, how to hold someone under psychiatric reasons because of mental incapacitation or because they are harm to themselves. And there's processes for that. So we can explore that rather than just criminalizing it and trying to prosecute. Already our prisons are full. And you want to add more people which the imprisonment or the fine will not do anything to them or solve their issue. Rather, give them the support. Take it outside the ambit of the criminal justice system and put it under the ambit of the social services system, and then you can deal proper with it. In the criminal justice system, there are no really. How many people in our prisons have been given psychologists to help them before? No. Right? So have the right social structures in place and then shift the people there where they can get the right resources, the right people that can help them, rather than criminalizing everything. I think responding to everything with law and order, that law and order mindset really does little to help us in this situation. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kofi. Now, Christian, you can round up for us in 3 minutes, so we can close by 7:45.
Yes, thank you so much. I apologize, I went off. Joy News was also on the same subject matter, and I had to also address viewers on that, and then quickly come back to you. But I must appreciate that my brother has summed up a lot of the things I wanted to put out, especially also answering the question about the soldier. Because in my early submission, I mentioned that in the expert definition or opinion about what suicide is, the two stimuli that they had mentioned is pain and despair. And so that if, like he said, a soldier is at the battlefront and having been captured, definitely in the mind of the soldier, things are not normal. In the mind of the soldier, he cannot sit and subject himself to pain and torture. At that point in time, his mind, the brain can only hold to a certain threshold of normal pain. Beyond that is abnormality. And that's what they want from me. Since I cannot hold up to all the exigencies of life, then I would kill myself. So that point in itself is inherently supportive of the reason why it should be decriminalized. So, I mean, our point and focus is that we have filed this application at the Supreme Court, and we are looking at the decriminalization of it. We have canvassed the arguments, provisions potentially support, because going to the Supreme Court means that you need arguments that are compelling. Article 17, 1, 2, Article 15, Article 29, 4 are the main articles. Aside that, copious medical literature has also paved the way for my laws to realize the reason why attempt to commit suicide is a mental health condition. It also moves to talk about how or where such disability exists, then the said criminal offense, since it is wholly, or the constituent element is intention, where that disability exists, then it vitiates it, and therefore there is no crime at all. So in law, you cannot say that the person has attempted suicide. And then comes the constitutional inferences with or conflict with the section 57, which I'd already mentioned. And then it concludes with the conflict also between the Mental Health Act and then section 57 too. So basically, this is a humble submission before. It's a booklet, but in summary, this is what we had put out. And we are also grateful that you gave us this opportunity, and all members who have contributed in diverse ways. And we believe in diverse opinions, whether supporting or showing alternative ideas of how the problem could be resolved. We are also appreciative of it. And we look forward to having one common mental health for
All right, Christian. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Christian. Thank you, Kosa. Thank you, Kofi Usu. Thank you, our South African lawyer, and anybody that made a contribution. We are so grateful. I've displayed our social media platforms. On Instagram, we are Lawyers Direct Global. I see, please go to on your IG and then follow us. So anytime we post our flyers, you will be notified of this. And then also on our YouTube is Lawyers Diary. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel so you'll be abreast with all the previous discussions that we've had. So after every discussion, we try to post the content there. So it will be of some kind of history for us as well. So thank you all. And we look forward to seeing you next 2 weeks as we discuss something on human rights, something on finance as well. So thank you, and we are grateful. See you next 2 weeks. Thank you.